Wednesday, there were a lot of games on. There were big performances. Anyone heard of Shaedon Sharpe? Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I like ham sandwiches. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers, go ahead and get to FanDuel. If you win your first $5 bet, you get $150 in bonus bets. Also, check out lockedondaily.com. That is where you'll find the best newsletter for your favorite team. It's free. It comes into your inbox 5 days a week, and you get all the info that you need. What a great, great deal. We are here on what is Anosmia Awareness Day. Do you know what anosmia is? Well, it just means a loss of smell. Full or partial. So if you've had issues with your smell in the past, hey, we're here for you today. Let's talk about NBA action, because that is actually what we're here to do, sort of. A couple of updates on the Minnesota Timberwolves. We had a few injury statuses that we weren't aware of. What we do know now is that both Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert are both out for tomorrow, but Donte DiVincenzo is officially questionable, as is Anthony Edwards. So it seems like DiVincenzo is returning. I imagine they'll be pretty sort of tight on the minutes as we come back. Remember, it took a long time for DiVincenzo to even become fantasy relevant for 12-team leagues. And I don't know that immediately they just chuck him back to 31 minutes. I don't think that happens. If you have a stash ability, try it. Let's see what happens. But there's no guarantee that's what goes on. And then the Pelicans, just in case you're not aware, Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk are sitting the front end of a back-to-back. So to me, that sort of reduces any impact you might have or any value you might think you have with Kelly Olynyk being a guy to stream or more importantly, a guy that you want to hold rest of season if he's going to sit back-to-backs. He's not Zion Williamson, who's probably going to sit the game on Friday. Olynyk is not good enough to deal with these potential rests, and that sort of thing to me also suggests that as we get deeper and deeper into the season, you will get more back spasmy type injuries that crop up. Like I mentioned that, I think it was on the show earlier today, saying his season was delayed, Kelly Olynyk, because of a back issue, and very easy on an old, tall player to throw the old back spasm, back soreness into injury reports if you're looking to sit somebody. So just be aware of that those guys, Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk, are both out on Thursday. So that rotation we saw the game prior from the Pelicans, you can go chuck that in the bin. All right, we are going to talk about the games. Was there 9 of them on? I think there was 9. I think 9 is the correct number. Yep, 9 of them. Let's go in. The first one is Portland and Washington. In Washington, it is a Denny Avdia revenge game. He lasted 5 minutes, sprained his ankle, returned, and then they ended up calling it a quad issue. Anyway, 5 points in 6 minutes for Denny. The guy that absolutely dominated without him is a guy that's been the reverse of dominating, like dreadful, Shaedon Sharpe. What do we make of this? Okay, so let's put this all out here now. They're playing the Wizards. Yes, they're playing the Wizards. So he had 36, 8, and 5, a steal, a block, 3 threes, 33 minutes. It's an unbelievably good line. He took 26 shots, which, of course, is a lot. He also went to the line 10 times. All these things, we love when it happens. We love the game. We love what Shaedon did. We go, that's fantastic. I'm not denying that he did it. But then our next focus should be, it's not sitting here, all lathered up, ready to talk about it ad nauseum. It's about, what does it mean moving forward? Do we think that it's realistic that Shaedon will double up the amount of shots of Anthony Simons? Do you think that it's realistic that Shaedon will have 26 to 14 shots versus Jeremy Grant? Do we think that it's realistic that Denny Avdia just doesn't play? Or do we think it's realistic that Shaedon shoots 50% and has 8 rebounds? Like, none of that is realistic. None at all. Every other game has been terrible for the last month, it feels like. This is a great game. It's a big pop game. If you wanted to add him, I'm never going to blame you for it on a situation like this for a guy that has talent but hasn't really ever put it together. But it's just not a real thing. Toumani Camara was fine. He obviously had that real pop stretch, and the last couple of games have been fine. 11, 5, and 2. The 3 steals is good. but everything else has been just like mid-ish. And that's sort of why he's always been hanging around the top 120 all season and not rolling as a top 60 guy. He's sort of going to pull back, I think, from here. Scooter only played 26 minutes, but he did 14 with 4 threes and 2 steals. I still would prefer Henderson over Sharpe, even with this game. And the other one is going to be Donovan Clingan. You're going to ask, what do I do with Clingan? He played 18 minutes. He's trash. And, okay, but he had 5 fouls. So he basically, they fouled him out. Of course, coach legendary, brilliance, thinking, strategy, NBA. They're all words that I put together. You can just rearrange them into a sentence that makes sense, actually. You can do a bit of work for once. They fouled him out. He is, you know my thoughts. He's not currently good. He would have played way more minutes than this had he not got those foul trouble. He had 4 and 8 with 3 assists. Like, the line was shaping up to be pretty good. I would still hold him. But also, he's not good enough to just every night get 32, 32, 32. Chris Murray stepped up with Abdir out 12 and 6 with 2 blocks. I don't think I care enough about that. Or Jabari Walker had 12, 4 and 4, which is fine as a deep league stream situation. Let's go and have a look now at the Wizards side of this game. No Malcolm Brogdon still no Alex Sarr. So let's check on Rashawn Holmes, who also got into foul trouble. And then with Clingan and the Blazers going small, they never put Holmes back in. He only had 4 fouls in the end. But what a game. 20 and 5 on 100% shooting. He didn't have a block after averaging two blocks over the last week. He is fine to stream in while Sarr is out. Jordan Poole, 24, 5 and 3. What a season this has been from Poole, actually. Unbelievably good season that I think has been not really talked about over the last month to 6 weeks. He's been so good. Keyshawn George, only 27 minutes and only 7 points. He floated value with a steal and 2 blocks, which is great. But, yeah, and I'd rather have him than some of the others on this team, but it's still like, is it actually good enough to hold? Now, if you're not in playoffs just yet, then you probably do. If you need desperation production right now, an honest appraisal of your roster, is he your worst? And if he is, you get rid of him. Bob Carrington, 8 and 8, 4 assists. Like, okay, I'm going to need a lot more things to happen for Bub to be a 12-teamer. And the same with Chris Middleton, who they're playing, and he plays 24 minutes, he has 8, 4, and 5. I don't think it's getting better than that, so see you later.
Get that garbage out of here.
Marcus Smart had 10 in his 20 minutes. We're not rostering him. While Bilal was fine, like 16 points, 35 minutes, 78% is great. But then he went 2 of 6 from the line. He had only 2 rebounds. He had nice defensive stats. He still remains a little fringy to me. He still remains fringy in saying that, like, not a must-roster 12-teamer. Corey Kispert did his thing. We've talked about him on a lot of the daily streaming shows. Hey, you're looking for points and threes? Go to Corey Kispert. 20 points, 5 threes. You're looking for anything else? Please don't look in this direction. But when you're looking for those things, that is what Corey Kispert does. 8 more games. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets all throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip or you want to bet on something happening in the fourth quarter, the second half, an individual player prop, a spread, a total, a game line, whatever, live bets, you can do them all through the game. You could even combine those live bets into a same-game parlay to increase your odds. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just go to FanDuel.com to join today. That is FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. So let's do the second game. What about your Detroit Pistons? 117-97 over the Boston Celtics. And yeah, Boston was on a back-to-back. We know that. That's okay. But still, like, to lose by 20 points is pretty crazy. The Celtics, after the illness of Kristaps Porzingis yesterday, he was available to return. So he started. Al Horford started. Drew Holiday returned and started. That meant that Sam Hauser went to the bench. Jaylen Brown was out. Again, they tried to obfuscate. Oh, no, he's questionable. He was never going to play. There was just no way he was ever going to play in this game. And he didn't, of course. So Hauser went to the bench. We had we had Brown be out of this game. And who was the other guy that left the action in this one? I'm trying to remember who the other player was as I just wait for my screen to pop up. Torrey Craig, the random starter from last game. So, yeah, right. Let's talk Boston. There's not a lot to really get into. 31 minutes again for Peyton Pritchard with Jaylen Brown and Luke Cornett out. 18, 3 and 4 with 5 threes. He's on a nice little hot streak again. It's been very up and down for him over the last, 2 months, but this is a good run. Tatum was solid, 27, 6, and 3. Horford played 30 minutes. Now, if Horford comes off the bench, I have no real interest in him. When he starts, he's at least streamable because they push his minutes up. 9 and 10 with 2 steals and a block. That's useful. Derek White was fine. We only got 26 minutes from infirmary legend Kristaps Porzingis. He had 11 and 2 threes with 3 steals. I think that there is still... he's actually in a real down slump. We saw him on the buy low show. He didn't get the buy low bump here, obviously. I still think he's going to bump up pretty significantly from here, but they were playing like Sam Hauser and Nemesh Cater and Jordan Walsh 15 minutes in this game. Also, by the way, if you are, for some reason, part of the 95% of people who are still rostering Drew Holiday or one of the 95% of teams in leagues that are rostering Drew Holiday, what are you doing?
Get that garbage out of here.
Yeah, correct, Jack. You do not roster old mate Drew Holiday in any 12-team format. The Detroit Pistons. Yeah, what? This team, man, they are really, really playing well. That is a fantastic performance to not only beat the Celtics, but to cook them. And I tweeted this out, and it did come across probably the wrong way to some, talking about the fact that this team, everyone's talking about how good it is, and they got a chance to honestly be a home court advantage team in the Eastern Conference. And I said that they're doing all this, and nobody mentions that they're doing it without Jaden Ivey. Now, it depends on how you view Jaden Ivey. You could go, yeah, that's saying that how bad he is and they're better off without him. That's not what I'm saying. Jaden Ivey was actually playing not bad. He's a top 5 pick year 3 who was starting to challenge the edges of a breakout, and they've lost him, and they're doing all this without him. Him being out means that they had to go and get Dennis Schroeder, and they'll try and Marcus Sasser in minutes, and they rely upon Tim Hardaway. But they're doing all this without Jaden Ivey. Now, again, I don't really know where Ivy fits long-term and any of that stuff, but yeah, it's been great from Detroit here. Leaky Beasley's on an insane hot streak. He only played 22 minutes here, but he had 26 with 6 threes. At some point, it is going to cool, but like we've mentioned many times this season, in the past, you'd get hot streaks, and then you get cold streaks, and the length of those would be usually similar. Now, we seem to get hot streak, and then 1 or 2 bad games, maybe even 1, and he's back to being good, which is a huge turnaround. Tim Hardaway's doing nothing as per usual. Jalen Duren had 13 and 11 there. That's solid. Well, Cade wasn't at his best at all and still gave us 21, 4, and 11. But remember when Tobias Harris, after Jaden Ivey got hurt, I thought, okay, here we go. Harris was someone that I looked at and I said, there's no way his usage can be lower on this team than it was in Philadelphia, yeah? He's got to at least do a little bit more. And then it was like, okay, maybe he's cooked and he's terrible. And then Jaden Ivey went to go, okay, surely he does more and he gets more usage. And of course, his usage went down even further. I went, okay, maybe he's done. Nah, he's actually just good again now. Let's rephrase it. Is he good, or is he capably above average? Which I guess capably above average is good. It's not great, it's good. And Toby, who had a stinking run at things. 16 and 9 with 2 threes, a steal and 2 blocks. He's shooting the lights out. He's top 60 over the last 2 weeks. He's been awesome. For the value of it's going to open up, and we're going to see this more when we talk paces as well. And I don't know the answer to this, but the discussion of your draft values and all that sort of stuff in the end, is Tobias Harris going to end up ranked close to his ADP at 75, 80, even though he had many months of outside top 120 and he might roll top 50, top 60 here the rest of the way. What's more valuable? Because season long in the end doesn't mean that much. Is he going to be the right pick? Is he going to be a bad pick because of how bad it was early on? Is it going to be a great pick because he was ahead of ADP through the final third of the season? Again, we'll talk about that when we get to Indiana, or we'll at least allude to it, because there's a key figure in that game. In fact, we might as well just get into it now, because I don't really know what more there is to talk about on this Pistons team. No, that's not true. We'll talk Asar Thompson, because, again, only 27 minutes. He left the game with what looked like might be something of a serious injury. They ended up calling it a cramp, so I think we're good. Only 7 points, but 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and 5 steals. Elite defense. They still don't push him enough minutes. He is still someone I think we probably roster, but he is at the back end because he's only sitting at 26 minutes. And he doesn't score very much. And it is just about defensive stats. He has benefited also from Jaden Ivey being out. He gets a little bit more ball handling, and he obviously gets the starting job here. It's taken a long time for us to get here also with Asar, but we are here now. Let's go on to the next one. This is the Toronto Raptors, who got cooked by the Pacers 91-111. For the Raptors, there was no Scotty Barnes. Okay. Hip contusion. All right, we'll see where we go with that. But what did happen is Jakob Poeltl returned. He was on a minutes limit. He played 24 minutes, but he started 10-5-2 for Poeltl. That moved Johnny Mobo back to the bench, and Ochai Baji is the one that started for Barnesy. Now, That's great that Pirtle's back. Will he last the rest of the season? I've got no idea. Not a great return, but still he's back. And all that meant is that the two best fantasy performers from a category perspective were the two backup centers. Sure, why not? Mobo played 22 minutes. He had 16 and 6 with 2 steals and a block. And then Orlando Robinson dropped an 8 and 3 with 3 steals in 12 minutes. I'm not that excited about what Robinson's doing. We've seen Mobo be back and forward. But that was a very good game from him. And we just keep him in mind for if something does happen to Pirtle down the line. Dick had 10 in 28 minutes. He had 2 threes. He had 4 assists. That's a solid Dick line. Like, it's not anything that's super great. It's not anything exciting. It's fine. We can use Dick for streaming, but we definitely don't need to be adding Dick onto our roster. I don't know what your Dick roster situation looks like, but I wouldn't be looking to add him as a guy to hold on to. We are definitely not just locking in it and just holding on to Dick like that. We don't need to. Release Dick to the waiver wire in most cases. Rowan Barrett, 16, 2 and 5. Abaji was fine, 10 and 4, but that's just deep league stuff. Well, quickly, you're not super efficient from the line, 1 of 3, but 53 from the field, I'll take. 18, 2 and 6, I'll take. Still get the questions about dropping quickly, which, no, you do not do that. Not a bad game. The Chris Boucher, Mr. Banana Man himself, the old banana in the tailpipe legend, 0 points in 19 minutes. I know that when he has the next big one, that someone's going to go, oh, Boucher, should we do it? As is like canon for the last 7 years of fantasy basketball action, I guess. Let's talk about the Indiana Pacers because they are playing at an incredibly high level. They did roll out the same starting lineup again, but let's talk about the man that sparked a lot of my thoughts about ADPs and values and that sort of stuff. Tyrese Halliburton, 33, 3 and 11, 3 steals, 2 blocks. That's 3 double-doubles in a row. He hit 7 threes. He shot an incredible 80%, which of course he won't do, right? And he's not going to shoot that. But over the last 2 weeks, the big fella's the third-ranked player. He was picked at like between 7 and 10 in a lot of drafts, and it hasn't been anywhere near that good. He's the 22nd-ranked player this season, so it's not disgracefully bad. But the question will come up, because I'm going to ask it, is how much of a bad pick was it to have picked him in the first round if he rolls, let's say he rolls top 5 from now on, and you got him at 8. That's a W pick if he's a top 5 player through your fantasy playoffs. But he was rolling as the 40th player, 35th ranked player for a period of time earlier in the season. And the argument can be made. Well, if you picked him in the first round, you're probably not even in the playoffs to get this impact through the end of the season. And I'm leaning a lot more towards, and predicting first versus second half production is almost impossible to do. But I'm leaning more towards, I don't think that's true. Because look at who else was picked in the first round. Joel Embiid was picked in the first round. All right, so if you pick Joel Embiid in the first round, you're doing better than if you pick Joel Embiid, like that's worse than picking Tyrese Halliburton. If you pick Steph Curry in the first round, their early season production is not that different, and now Halliburton's cooking him, so cool. If you picked Ant Edwards in the first round, is Anthony Edwards' fantasy category value, which is not that strong, is it better than Halliburton by that much that it's going to kill you? What if you picked Luka Doncic in the first round, who missed 2 months of action? Would that have guaranteed you a playoff spot? What about Anthony Davis, who's probably not going to play again this season? What about Victor Wembanyama, who's definitely not playing again this season? So I think that if you were good enough as a fantasy manager, yeah, it hurts, but I think you can get away with it. I think you could have gotten away with it. If you've got Halliburton on your team, are you going to make playoffs? A lot of other things need to go right. And yeah, you need to see how everything else plays out. But I think that this value that he's producing is very, very interesting. Because last year he was top 5 to start the season and then like 50th or whatever second half, which is obviously terrible. The corollary to that's going to be like, what about Vooch? If you picked him in the 60s and he was rolling top 20, top 25, top 30 for 4 months, and now for the last 6 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is, he's the 120th best player and might not even make it through to the end of the year. And then he ends up overall, his rank sits at 60 for the season based on all of this. Was it a W pick because he was good for 3 months, or was it in the end like actually not a good pick to have grabbed him inside the top 50 because of the way it fell off? I don't know. Anyway, that's a discussion for you guys to have in your own time with your family, friends, grandparents, all that sort of stuff. Neesmith was solid again, 12, 5 and 3, 24 minutes. That's fine. He's streamable for 12s. He's not must roster. And again, this is where context is important, because I can say, hey, maybe you can consider Neesmith for 12-team leagues, and then I'll come around and say, Andrew Nembhard, drop him.
Get that garbage out of here.
Ben Mathurin, drop him.
Get that garbage out Johnny here.
but they're all at the same level. The thing is that Nembhard and Mathurin are rostered in all these spots, and Neesmith's not. Whereas in reality, they should all be in the same area. In that, like, if you've got Neesmith on your waiver wire, you can consider a stream of him. If you've got Mathurin sitting on your roster for the last 3 months, you don't need to do that. You need to move off him so you can add somebody else in. And then maybe add him back at a different time, depending on how it all plays out. So context is always important with all that stuff. Siakam's in a gigantic slump. He's 214th over the last 2 weeks. He had 15 and 8, no defensive stats, no threes, horrid free throws. Just a really shocking run after being on that. So I apologize because this might be the worst sell high slump I've ever delivered to somebody. He was 15th, and I put him on the sell high show, and he's like 220th since then. Not looking good. He will bounce back from that. I have zero doubt about that whatsoever. Today's episode is also brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%, plus you also get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That is over 8x the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from the first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. Over 8x the national average savings account. Interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC. Member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. All right, let's go to the next one. The Philadelphia 76ers and the New York Knickerbockers. We'll start with the Sixers. Andre Drummond got the start in this one because Gershon Yabusele was out. Of course, Joel Embiid remains out as well. The Sixers were ahead in this game for quite a while. The Knicks pull away in the end, and after retiring from his podcast, Paul George stood on business. Yeah, 25, 8 and 7. I got shook then by saying slang. 25, 8 and 7, 4 steals and 4 threes. That's a huge game. Big volume as well. Not as big as Maxi's volume, 38% on 32 attempts. And after Maxi was rolling as a top 5 player, and there was a level of unsustainability with that, he's 68th in the 2 weeks since then, and the efficiency without Embiid has completely died. He's, the counting stats are great. The efficiency is in the toilet at the moment. And Kelly Oubre was also awesome here. 27 and 5 with 2 steals, a block, and 4 threes. Quentin Grimes, I wasn't that worried about the fact that he left the last game due to knee soreness. He had 3 points. He played 21 minutes. He had a steal and a block. Okay. I would like to go one more game. But if this is the decision and you're going to go back to Justin Edwards, which is what happened here, then I'm out. But I will wait one more. Edwards had 6 in 28 minutes. Not like he's a great option. Lonnie Walker was useless again. 2 points in 11 minutes. Well, the big avocado. Is it a good game? Not really. But 7, 9, and 5, 2 steals and a block is totally passable for category leagues. Points leagues, not really. The problem is he's still the third string center. And if Yabu is back in the next game, we don't care about Drummond in this performance. I'd be pretty loath to try and chew up a roster spot to add Drummond based on this game when it might not mean a single thing as we move forward. On to the Knicks. You'll be shocked to know this, but after coming back into a game down big margin with a sore knee, Karl-Anthony Towns did not play here. They started Ariel Hukporti. Yeah, not Precious Achiuwa. Now, Achiuwa still got starters minutes. 31 of them, in fact. He had 7 and 6 with 4 blocks. But that's because Hukporti got injured, knee sprain. 8 and 2 for Hukporti with a block. If Towns remains out and Robinson isn't back, Achiuwa's fine as a stream, but they've got a terrible schedule this week. The Knicks, I don't think you need to get super excited. I don't think you need to. Like, their next quality game, like they play Friday, Sunday. Friday's a 10-game day. Would you even use Achiuwa on that Friday? Maybe, maybe not. So I don't think there's a rush there. After, I don't even know when I did this, but yeah, we talked about Mikal Bridges a lot. It was just me doing projections and how bad he has been. Like, just bro doesn't take free throws. Shots don't fall. He decided to go crazy here. 28, 2 and 3, 2 steals and a block with 3 threes in the real revenge game. In 41 minutes, he shot 67% from the field and he actually got to the line. Now, he only hit one of the 2 shots, but taking a free throw is an absolute win for him. Bro's been going at like 21% free throw attempt rate through his career and he's at like 7 this season. 7. He just doesn't take them. Brunson was awesome, especially down the stretch, 34, 3 and 7, while Anunoby was very good, 16, 9 and 3 with 2 steals. And it was a weirdly inefficient, at least from the line, game from Joshy Hart. 17 boards is great. 4 assists is great, but like 1 of 4 from the line. It's not normally the way that he rolls, but that's okay. Like he's obviously been so ridiculously good this season that we can give him somewhat of a pass for that performance, which is just not at quite his usual standard. But the big thing about this team is going to be watching Towns and whether he's able to return and how long he's out for. And hopefully Tibbs didn't cook the season again. The Atlanta Hawks, the Miami Heat. The Heat smashed them 131-109. I think, didn't these teams play again 2 days ago and the total of the game was 170? I believe that's true. Anyway, that just shows that there's so much weird variance that happens in the NBA. We'll start with Atlanta, who had the same lineup. We've talked about Atlanta a lot this week because they're one of the worst quality game teams. And as part of my streaming strategy test sample, the idea was maybe you can drop some Hawks guys. And the guys to consider dropping were Clint Capella, who had 8 and 3. George Niang, who had 7 and 4 with a 3. By the way, you just don't roster these guys. Karis LeVert, whose game was not bad. 32 minutes, 17, 2 and 2, 2 steals and 3 threes. But we also know the last game from LeVert was terrible. And it is really, really hard to lock in on the production that Karis provides because it's all over the shop. And when the schedule does not align, which it doesn't align this week, it is hard to lock down a roster spot with someone like that. And honestly, I think we go back to that same idea with Zach Ricochet. Ricochet played 26 minutes after we pushed to 32 games ago. He shot 67% here, but he took 6 shots, 11, 3 and 3, 2 threes. Not good enough. Not good enough to me. Dyson Daniels was good enough, 18, 5 and 5. Trey had 17, 2 and 8, was horribly inefficient. And we're also getting more Terrence Mann minutes. 29 minutes for Mann. He had 13, 4 and 4. And no, I'm not considering adding him. I'm not even considering putting him into the TMC. The Matherin collective of the bunch of wings and guards who you could cycle through with the Spider-Man pointing meme. That game is one of those games. But I don't trust in Terrence Mann enough to do that consistently. The night watchman, Mohamed Wayugeh, played 12 minutes for 5 points. Why are we even bothering with this? I don't understand it, but it's happening, so we keep talking about it. Miami. Let's start with the fact that we got the 4th instance of the Haywood Highsmith cycle this season. Highsmith, after being DMP'd for 5 games in a row, played 27 minutes off the bench, 14, 7 and 5 with 4 threes, a steal and a block, a fantastically good game. Does that mean he just moves in and starts in the next one or plays 28 a night now? Spoelstra is infuriating. Last game, what did Kyle Anderson play? 28 minutes. This game, 1 minute. Cool. So you're not obviously using Kyle Anderson. Terry Rozier, out of the rotation. Jaime Jaquez Jr., Triple H played 8 minutes. Not useful. Wiggins only got 29 minutes for 15 points. Superman, 29 minutes. Khalil Ware, 12 and 8. 2 steals and 2 threes. Absolutely, we are holding Ware. Just enough value. But we got random pop-offs from Davion Mitchell. 20 points with 5 threes, 6 assists and 2 steals. So immediately I go, wow, all right. Mitchell's been playing a lot. He's been getting a lot of minutes, and that's great. So how did he get here? Oh, here you go, 88% shooting. So immediately you just go, forget that. It's bullshit. It's not real. But what is real are the minutes, around 30-ish, usually. 37 here is huge. But what he is an assists and steals guy. 6 assists, 2 steals. And when you get 30 minutes with the potential to push to 34, well, that's useful. So I'm not saying that we're adding Davion Mitchell. I wouldn't. But when we're talking streamable level players for assists and steals, Davo's in there. Duncan Robinson also got red hot here. 24, 5 and 6 with 6 threes. He shot the ball well. He's no more than Miami's Corey Kispert, a guy that you look at for points and threes and you don't get excited about anything else. Did I mention that Terry Rozier was out of the rotation again? He was. Oh yeah, drop him, of course. All right, let's do the next one, the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were down early on in this one to the Nets, but they do pull it out. 129-121. Chet Holmgren returned. He played 32 minutes. That's the most he's played since returning. And that's just a Chet line, isn't it? Now, they did play the Nets. The Nets were good, but the Nets still allow a lot of stats to opposing players, especially big men. 22 and 17, 4 assists, 2 steals and 3 blocks. That's an unbelievably good line. Well done. Thank you, Chet. I love it. We want to do Alex Caruso check, because he's been stepping up a little bit. He didn't do much, did he? 5, 2, and 3 with a steal. That's still got marginal value. It's incredibly marginal, though. And he remains in that stream group. So does Lou Dort, who was worse in 21 minutes. He had 3, 1, and 2. And Aaron Wiggins continues just an insane run. Now, again, what was the one who was the player that I was talking about earlier? Shaedon Sharpe. Do you fully sit here and go, yeah, all right, I'm in here. I believe Aaron Wiggins is going to lead the team in shots because that's what he did. He took 19 shots. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander took 11. Right? That's not real. But he was great. He shot 58%. It's on a hot streak here from Wigo. 29 minutes, 24, 5 and 3 on 58% shooting. He has been elite with his efficiency. Don't look at this and go, I must grab him. I must hold him. I must do everything through Aaron Wiggins. He is our savior. He has saved basketball many times. I know this. But that level of efficiency, leading the team in shots, is not a thing. It's not a thing. Shai had 27, 6 and 5 with 2 steals. The Hong Kong Mattress, Carson Wallace, played 30 off the bench, 13 and 3 with 3 steals. And the Bronco, 22, 5 and 4. So big numbers like right across the board here. The guys who saw their minutes cut were Lou Dort, Isaiah Joe, and even Alex Caruso, where we got more Wiggins and more Wallace. But as we know with Mark Dagnott, he can go with a million different options here. He could next game, Wiggins might not feel it or Wallace might not feel it, and Dort plays 30. That is the strength of the Thunder from a team perspective, but also one of the weaknesses of considering those guys as reliable fantasy options, which they're not, of course, reliable fantasy options. The second side of this game is where there's a lot of intrigue. We've sort of been waiting for it. We've been talking about what happens if Shaedon Sharpe gets to start with Nick Claxton out. Last season, remember we got absolutely rug pulled on this at the start of the season last season? This is obviously before Jordi Fernandez was there, and we'll go, all right, Claxton's out, they're surely going to play Sharpe, and then he played 0 minutes, despite having no other center around. Not this time, though. 31 minutes for Dayron, 25 and 15, 5 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks, 2 threes, 80% from the field, 100% from the line. I'll tell you now, that is absolutely in the mix for Monstrous Line of the Night. Don't know if you'll get it, but it's right there. We've been talking about how he's been doing just enough, but he leans a little more stashy than absolute like we're using it right now. But I want you to be very cautious with this. Yeah, like rostered Shaedon Sharpe, there's no problem. He was doing enough in limited minutes anyway to be a rosterable guy. We've talked about this at length. But there are going to be people, I know because it has already happened, I've seen people say this to me already. There are going to be someone out there who's going to go full Omer Yurtseven. What if they just keep starting Sharpe? Claxton comes off the bench now, Sharpe gets 30 a night as we move forward. I mean, sure, that'd be great. You'd love that because you added him. It's just so unrealistic. The way that a locker room usually works, a professional environment, whatever it is, right? He got suspended for 1 game, Claxton. Imagine he comes the next day, and Jordy's going to go, thanks, Clax, love you, but Sharpe had a really good game, so I'm so sorry you're now an 18-minute bench player. It just isn't a realistic scenario. From a fantasy perspective, we'd love it. You can sit here and argue with me or whoever you want about, I actually think Sharpe's a better player for the team. I don't actually think that matters, to be honest. Sharpe's a younger option. He's not that much younger. He is younger, but he's not that much younger. And yeah, I don't think that Claxton's a real part of the future long-term on this squad. It just seems incredibly unlikely. Hey, maybe it happens. And if it happens, I'll be the first here to tell you. Well, someone I'm sure will tell me in advance. But I'll be the first to tell you that I'm wrong. I got it wrong. I didn't think they'd do it. It seems ridiculously unlikely that Sharpe would just stay starting, play 30 minutes a night. Claxton's now an 18-minute bench role, and the minutes distribution between the two is now switched. Seems unlikely. We know, though, that Sharpe is going to cook whenever Claxton's out. Or not whenever. He'll have the opportunity to cook when Claxton is out. Fantastic game from Keon Johnson. 16, 3 and 4, 3 steals, a block. Now, he is inefficient, but he's doing little bits and pieces around the edges. I don't mind him as a hold. Cam Johnson, 19, 3 and 7. Like, they're playing big minutes to these guys. Again, it's been a very interesting sort of ebb and flow with the minutes on the Nets. But we're back to big roles from Cam Johnson. And what about my man? What about Killian the Killer Hayes? 34 minutes. Signed on a 10-day off the scrap heap. 19, 2 and 7 with 5 threes. I believe I said this on maybe the daily preview show or one of the shows, the Waiver Wire show. I said there is going to be a game where Killian's shots actually go in. And it's going to look awesome. Here you go. Do not believe that. But while D'Lo is out, yeah, Hayes has some value, especially in those deeper formats. He's rostered nowhere. But in deeper formats, at least, even in standards, you want some steals and assists, he usually brings it. And then you get the occasional big pop scoring game. Nice double-double from Zaire. Tied his career high for threes with 5, which he had last game too. He's providing enough. Again, how all this goes when Claxton, Thomas, Russell, and Clowney all come back as early as next game for Claxton, maybe even as early as next game for Thomas. Don't know about that. Russell and Clowney will be next week, it looks like. But yeah, Keon, Hayes, Zaire, all solid. Shaedon Sharpe, awesome. The back of the rotation, maybe not as good, but some interesting stuff there to at least chew on. Just don't get too far out over your skis on it. Let's talk about the next one. We're going to the LA Clippers, going to take on the Chicago Bulls in Chicago. LA 122, Chicago 117. They did it for NBA Central. Kawhi returned 33 minutes, 17, 8, and 4, 4 steals, a block, 3 threes. Inefficient, but good game. Jimmy Harden, what a draft pick he's been this season. He's going to end up as close to a first-round guy, and he was one of those guys, both him and Towns were guys I was like, oh, I'm happy to take them at the turn, which was probably was controversial at the time, and I'm happy how that's turned out. Other ones, obviously not so much. But that one's turned out all right. Derek Jones got a spot start with Norman Powell out. He had 16 with 2 threes, a steal and a block. Cool. It's all very good from you, Norman. Derek Jones. I don't think I care that much. What Chris Dunn, yeah. The 27 minutes were there, but everything else is pretty rough. He had a steal. He had 5, 4, and 3. He is still probably worth holding, but I'm not going to get overly excited. Well, Zubats, who'd been putting up some big numbers, it was a little bit lacking here, 10 and 10. While Simmons had 6, 8, and 8, a steal and a block. The 8 and 8 are great. The steal and the block are great. But he's still only playing 18 minutes here, Benny. He's not a 12-team must at all, nor is Bogdan Bogdanovic, who had 14 with 6 assists in 25 minutes. It's also a bit of a pop-off from Amir Coffey, but much like I said with the Thunder guys, hey, you're playing the Nets. Hey, you're playing the Bulls. We do expect some big performances. And speaking of big performances, we'll go to the Chicago side because Hall of Fame legend Nikola Vucevic was out once again. Jalen Smith was out, so Zach Collins played 38 minutes. He had 21, 17, and 7 with 2 steals and great field goals. Now, of course, he is the third string center, but the first 2 are out. So yeah, I have no idea what to make of Vooch when he returns or Smith when he returns. No idea. So you just use Collins because that is, when we talked about this on, I think it was the Waiver Wire show again, I don't really remember which show it was I did, but I talked about it. Like, we want to maximize value. We want to maximize games played. But if someone can come in and start and be a top 75, top 80 guy in those starts, that's not a streamer. So if you want to add Collins and ride him, use him until those guys come back, do it. That becomes more than a stream. Josh Giddey continued his ridiculous run. I said that he probably wouldn't be able to hold at 57% shooting from 3. I was right because it went up. He hit 100% in this game. 21, 8, and 12, 4 threes a steal. This further solidifies my idea that he is going to fall off in a huge way. I'm not saying he's going to be bad, but this is not going to stick at this level, guaranteed. While Lonzo Ball, finally, the minutes have been in place. The production has been dreadful. 15, 4, and 3, 2 steals, a block, 2 threes, 60% shooting, love that. He is at least usable for the time being. I'm still going to have some concerns, obviously, but that's solid enough. Well, Buzelis, 5 points, 26 minutes, 29%. You can jack him?
Get that garbage out of here.
Fanapants showed again that he's only a stream guy, 13 with 3 threes in 28 minutes. And it was a big game from Trey Jones, 16 in 18 minutes. I don't think you need to realistically react in any way to that one, to Trey Jones, but it did happen, so we mentioned it. The next game, the Sacramento Kings and the Utah Jazzmen. We're in Utah for this one. The Kings went at 118-101. Same lineup for Sacramento. So let's immediately do the Keon Ellis check. 33 minutes. Oh, yeah, okay. Now we're talking. 11 points, 3 threes, 2 steals, 3 blocks. That is the Keon Ellis special. Now, of course, he had a usage of about 8%. Not about, exactly 8%. He was a team best plus 22. How did he get the minutes? What did they do? Well, there are 2 ways that they can get those minutes to him. They can cut the top off from the starters, or they can just reduce the bench. And they sort of did both. We didn't have anyone playing the 37 minutes. Now, there is a blowout part of that. We also got the bench with they ran a 9-man rotation with Markelle Fultz playing 4 minutes. We had no Trey Lyles at all. So if they're going to remove Trey Lyles from the rotation entirely, then yeah, Alice can push into these minutes. Valanciunas got 14 minutes. He had 15 and 7. No, you don't hold him in 12s. LaRavia played 15 minutes, was scoreless. So did Fultz. But Alice benefited from the blowout, from the starters all going from 37 to 33, and from Trey Lyles' 10 minutes or so being taken out. So, is that a realistic thing? On one end, yeah, like they might just keep Trey Lyles out of the rotation. That's realistic. Is it realistic that the starters don't get lent on for 36 or 37? Probably not. But we don't need Alice playing 33. You need 26 or 27. and that makes it useful. DeRozan continues to play really well post-trade, 19, 6, and 8, while it was also a huge Keegan Murray game. Season high from Keegan Murray, 26 points, 5 threes, 6 rebounds, 2 blocks. That's great and all, but it doesn't mean that this is what happens as we move forward. It's fine, but he remains a back-end guy. Not a great run here from Sabonis. He had 12, 9, and 6, and Monk had 13, 9, and 6. Okay, that's fine. It's okay. It's not what you want, but it's good enough. Sort of, I guess. Let's talk Jazz, because they're going to be an incredibly important team through the fantasy playoffs, but an incredibly frustrating team. There was no Markkanen, there was no Collins, there was no Sexton, but Jordan Clarkson returned and Walker Kessler returned. Let's start with Kessler. He went back into the starting lineup. That meant that Kyle Filipowski moved to the bench and did nothing. We'll talk about Kessler first. 25, 14, and 5 with 2 steals on 100% shooting. We love that. But what this also tells us is that Filipowski, he's got a great fantasy game. But he needs to play center, obviously. Because with Kessler there, he didn't play any minutes at the 4 at all. 9 and 3 threes for Filipowski. That's not good enough. He's obviously been trending up and putting up big numbers. But if his value only comes because Walker Kessler is out, very hard to consider it a hold. KJ Martin was also good. 16, 5, and 4 in 34 minutes. I just want to watch that. Obviously, Collins is out and Markkanen's out, which helps, but we just keep that in mind. While Keontae had 11, 4, and 5. Collier bounced back sort of after a bad game, but he has cooled 9, 2, and 7 with 2 steals. I would still hold Collier. While it was an absolute stinker from Jordan Clarkson. He shot 7%. 7. Because he had 2 points on 14 shots. He had 6 assists and 2 steals. That's Killian Hayes-esque. I still don't mind using Jordan Clarkson in 12s and for the games that he plays. And then after a solid enough game last time out, Cody Williams returned to being Cody Williams. He had 3 and 2 in his 18 minutes. But it was good to get the info on what they do with Filipowski. That makes him almost impossible to hold unless Kessler is out. And just keep an eye on that production from KJ Martin. All right, so the final game of the night, Battle of Texas, San Antonio and Houston. The Rockets win 118-106. The Spurs ran an unchanged lineup. Keldon Johnson continues to just be unstoppable with scoring. 22 and 5. He didn't hit a 3, but 62% overall from the field and 100% from the line. They're great numbers. Obviously, they're great numbers. But just, again, trust me. I know it's hard, but trust me. It will not hold. He will not be this good. He will not continue. 70% true shooting is ridiculous. 80% on 2s is ridiculous. He's not this good. For now, stream him in. No worries. This was a great spot to stream. In fact, he was my prime stream for the Tuesday, Wednesday back-to-back. It worked well. It's also a great bounce back from Steph Castle, who'd been horrible. He had 22, 7, and 5 with 3 steals. These are all bench players, by the way. The next best player was Sandro Mamukilishvili, who had 12 and 4 with 3 steals. Are we back to him, are we? And then Julian Champagny had 11 and 4 with 3 blocks. The bench players putting in big numbers. So what does that mean? Well, again, we can talk about what happened and we do it. But then we go, okay, what now? Because Chris Paul played 22 minutes. Vassell played 24. Harrison Barnes, actually, sorry, his official title is the Pencil Harrison Barnes. Barnesy. Barnesy played 18 minutes. De'Aaron Fox played 28 and was horrible. 7 points on 25%. Biyombo played 14. 2 games ago, he played 30. What's the realistic scenario where all of the bench guys outperform the starters every game? It's not there. Or that the bench guys play as few minutes as they did. Vassell at 24 and Paul 22 and Fox 28. It's not likely. Sohan also got hurt in this game. He played 12 minutes, didn't return. With a head issue, they asked him at the halftime, how's your head? He said no complaints. And I said, okay, maybe sit down for the rest of the game. I'm going to guess he goes into concussion protocol. After this, you don't need to be rostering Jeremy Sohan. He is a drop. What do you do with Keldon? Well, they play the weekend back-to-back now. So they had this back-to-back, and then they have the Saturday-Sunday back-to-back. I'm going to double-check that. That sounds false, but I don't think it is. Let me double-check the Spurs schedule here. I don't want to give you guys knowingly false information. Yeah, no, so they play Tuesday, Wednesday, then they don't play Thursday, Friday, then they play Saturday, Sunday. Is Keldon Johnson worth holding for 2 zeros? Don't think so. Is Devin Vassell worth holding? I do think so. Is Steph Castle worth holding? I'm not going to be 100% on the Castle train. Although, obviously, a ridiculously good game. But this is what we wanted. This is where it hasn't been. He had 33 usage here, Castle. He'd been invisible. Now, he didn't shoot well, again. But so many times this happened today. When you go, all right, what is going on? Stefan Castle took 22 shots, and the next highest was 13. Is that really how a team wants to run their offense every game moving forward? Like Shaedon Sharpe doubling up everybody? Doesn't seem like it to me. But again, will Aaron Wiggins lead the Thunder in shot attempts? Almost definitely not. But it happened. So when you're trying to evaluate where it goes, what do? It is tough. And I get that you like watching Castle play and you think that he's better than how I view him or whatever it is. And that's okay. You can take these chances. But remember, they don't play for 2 days in a row now. As for Mamu, look, he can put up numbers. He can fill the stat sheet up. But he just doesn't play enough. It was great to see 12-4 with 3 steals from Mamukelashvili. But, how often is it going to happen? Probably not that often, I'm guessing. As for Biyombo, stream guy only. Drop him clearly now. And you can add back on the weekend back-to-back again. They are the only team with that weekend back-to-back. And this is, again, a strategy-based question. Because you could easily make an argument. So why would I drop a Spurs player now, Josh, if they're the only team that plays on the weekend back-to-back? And I get that. But your advantage from holding them so you can get the only players who play the weekend back-to-back is nullified by the fact that you get zeros for the next 2 days. So it seems good in context, but I'd rather just get extra games in the other days and then see maybe I can get something on that weekend. Maybe a Spurs guy falls through the cracks. But especially in fantasy playoffs, and this is sort of a tune-up towards playoffs this week, that holding multiple zeros from multiple days in a row of zeros from fringe players is not really a winning formula. Because as you've seen again, all through the season, all through this week, all through today, is that, holding, I got a zero here, but that's okay. I got 2 zeros, that's okay. He'll come out the next game and go off. Anything can happen. Weird shot attempts, weird minutes, weird distributions, weird injuries. And the guy that you waited for 2 days with his zeros because you thought he was definitely going to pop off, didn't. And it was a waste. Yes. Rockets. There was no Tari Eason in this game, so Jabari Smith moved back into the starting lineup. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens when Eason and Van Vliet are both available, which could be next game. Amen Thompson only played 30 minutes, but 25, 9, and 5 with 2 blocks is ridiculously good. He also was a large volume shooter, 15%. Well, Dylan Brooks, you could not, that is absolutely kissed on the deck. If you streamed in Dylan Brooks, which amazingly, again, as part of my streaming strategy series, I did. And I got unbelievable games, 2 in a row. And I would not bank on that moving forward. 19-4 with 5 threes for Brooksy, while Jalen Green had 21, 7, and 4. Şengün only played 19 minutes in this game. Just, again, the blowout's a factor, but he just wasn't needed to do that much. They went with other directions with a little bit more of Steven Adams, who played 19 minutes, 24 minutes of the Wild Thing, Jayshawn Tate, 20 minutes of Jeff Green. Well, Jabari Smith didn't do anything. 27 minutes. No, I wish it was 27 minutes. It was 32, actually. 27% is what he shot. 9 and 10, we don't need to roster Jabari Smith in 12s. You could stream him when it makes sense, but you don't need to hold on to him. And of course, all of this is going to get tipped absolutely arse over tits in the next game, or whenever that is, when Eason, which will be next game, and then Van Vliet is back, and then all of the thoughts that we have are going to be upended. Let's look at the lines of the night. Who was the monstrous line of the night? I teased it earlier, but I was lying. He's not the line of the night. The line of the night is Tyrese Haliburton. 33 points with 3 rebounds, 11 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks, but fear not, because the next category is the waiver wire line of the night. The man is 12% rostered on Yahoo. It is the big man himself, Shaedon Sharpe. 25 and 15 with 5 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. And why is there a picture of Bol there? That is not the right man, but that's okay. You know what we're talking about. The young gun of the night. This one's the right picture. It's Amen Thompson. 25 and 8, 5 assists, and 2 blocks. I never get to use the non-Wemby division graphic ever again, by the way. And the dud of the night, well, we go to a player who sucked, and it is Jrue Holiday. 4 points, 2 rebounds, and 6 assists for the very, very, very droppable Jrue Holiday. And that brings me to the end of a recap show for Wednesday with the 9 games on some very, very wild and wondrous shot attempts. Some big performances from randos like Shaedon Sharpe. Thankfully, nothing too major in the injury categories, which is always a W. And what you can do to get yourself another W, a second W, in fact, go ahead and like, go ahead and subscribe, go ahead and thumb, go ahead and double bang, go ahead and leave your comments. Speaking of a second and W, there's that meme that, I don't know why I said it, but it was in my head, but that's okay. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.